Hey there, golf lovers. Looking to step up your game? Let me tell you about Mollybox, the ultimate golf subscription box. Every month, Mollybox sends you a box packed with premium golf gear, accessories, and stylish apparel, all delivered right to your door. Imagine getting top-tier apparel and more, all handpicked just for you. With Mollybox, you'll stay ahead of the game and boost your performance. It's like having a personal caddy in a box. So why wait? Join the Mollybox family today. Head over to mollybox.com and use your limited time promo code ROGUE25, ROGUE, ROGUE 25 for 25% off your first box. That's mollybox.com.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Silent Witness, the podcast that walks you through true crime and cold cases. And we are typically looking for justice, hosted by Christina and Erica. And today we're going a little bit off track. We're not doing a cold case. We're getting into a serial killer who may or may well not be well known. But we just finished up an interview last week with Rader, right?
Julie Rader.
I always feel like I'm going to say her name wrong.
The sketch. She wrote a book called The Sketcher.
Mm-hmm. And it was about the BTK killer,
Right.
who we are going to talk about today.
Right.
All right.
Did you get a chance to read the book?
I have gotten through about half of it, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And the correlations are kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Like how
is.
that all came. So,
and
yeah.
it's interesting how she correlated it, yeah. Anyway, but as you mentioned, we had Julie Rader, who is the author of The Sketcher, on last week, and she did the first age progression sketch of the unknown killer at the time, BTK. So today, let's look at BTK. He meticulously planned these murders. He taunted the media.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He was just horrible.
Right. He, all the while, he was an ordinary family man.
Yeah. Have you seen the interviews with his daughter?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She had no idea.
Yeah. Nobody did.
Nobody did.
Neighbors.
And he was a great dad and
well respected in the community. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's look at the details of the crimes, the decades long investigation, and the eventual capture of him. But the question that hopefully we'll answer at the end is what drove him to do what he did.
I just don't even know if there is an answer to that.
I do have a quote that he said. Yeah.
Sure.
So, which is the name of this particular episode and the next maybe. But okay, so let's
dig in.
Let's go back 50 years.
50.
It's been 50 years.
Gosh.
Can you believe that?
No.
I'm old. But anyway. So back in January 15th, 1974. This is how far we're going to go back. 50 years.
Jeez. Okay.
Most of our listeners probably were not even born yet.
Which is why we're going over BTK
Yeah,
after reading Julie's book.
Right, because he's not as known as, let's say, Ted Bundy.
Like a Ted Bundy, yeah.
So, but he is probably worse, maybe? I don't know.
Gosh, yeah, I think he was way they're all horrible.
They are. Any murderer is. So let's go back to January 15th, 1974. There was a 28-year-old Air Force veteran named Joseph O'Terry who lived with his wife, Julie, in Wichita, Kansas, with their 5 children.
Yeah.
The 3 older children were at school. The 2 younger ones, Josephine and Joseph, were home with mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
A man came in the back door. One of the kids was letting the dog in from the backyard, and a man came in following the dog. Before he came in, he had cut the telephone lines to the house. And as you know, back then we didn't have cell phones.
We did not.
We had landlines, so the lines were cut. That stranger took all 4 mom, dad, and the 2 kids into a bedroom, tied their hands and feet with Venetian blind cords.
That cord.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Strangled dad and mom, then strangled the little boy and hung the daughter, the little girl, leaving the bodies to be found by the 3 older kids when they returned home from school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to jump ahead.
No,
but
you're good.
Do you have it in there about what BTK stands for?
Oh, yeah, that's coming.
Okay, there we go. Look at that. See, we're on the way.
That's
Same
coming.
wavelength, Christina.
That's coming in October of that year. But let's
I hate that story about that family. It is just heart-wrenching.
Because if I remember correctly, dad and mom came to after being strangled. They revived, and this is a pattern throughout his killings.
Yeah,
you know, he would just enough, and then they'd come back, and then he would. And I think that happened with 1 or 2 of the kids too.
From what I read, I mean, there's different things out there, and everybody has their own idea of what happened. Obviously, nobody knows because all 4 of the victims died that day. But also, I think it was part of his MO, I guess.
Yes.
To tell people that you'll be fine. It'll be okay.
Yeah. And again,
and then he would
not
go.
sure in this case, but just 3 older kids coming home from school and seeing their family
I just can't,
murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything on them where they are today?
I didn't.
I don't know if I've ever seen that. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even think to look at that. So let's go to April. So that was in January. Let's go to April. April 4th, 1974. Catherine Bright and her brother Kevin came home, and a stranger was sitting in their house with a gun.
Jeez.
Again, the phone lines were cut. Kevin was shot in the head. The stranger ties Catherine up, but she manages to get loose and fights the stranger. Eventually, she loses the battle and is strangled. She's revived. She wakes up.
Right.
And then the stranger gets a knife and stabs her 11 times in the stomach. Now, of course, she died, but Kevin lived.
Didn't the brother get away?
He lived. Yes. And he survived that gunshot wound.
Because he's the only surviving victim, or? Yes.
And there's, as far as I can remember, but there are witnesses throughout.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move to October 1974. So there's a phone call into the newspaper there in Wichita, Kansas, called the Wichita Eagle. And it directed authorities to go to the public library. And there they would find an envelope in a mechanical engineering book that contained information claiming responsibility for the crimes. And let me quote what that note said. Okay. This is a direct quote. Those 3 dudes you have in custody are talking to get publicity. The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them. BTK. You see, he at it again. They will be on the next victim. Additionally, so that's how he got his name. Right. Because from there forward, he'd sign his stuff BTK. But it also contained unknown details of the O'Terry killings. The letter, of course, had misspellings and grammatical errors, which would be throughout others. Right. That would be a mainstay.
Another kind of telltale sign that it's him. Sure.
A mainstay in all the future letters.
Okay.
All right. So let's go a few years. Let's go to 1977. March 17th specifically. So a stranger enters the home of Shirley Relford via her 5-year-old child. I think he answered the door.
Yeah.
The man puts the 5-year-old and the 2 siblings in a bathroom. Locks, I think mom was with him, and they just okay, y'all be okay. Puts him in the bathroom.
Just wait in here.
Yeah. Husband was at work. Children heard mom struggling with the stranger, and then they pushed the door open. The man threatened the kids and put them back in the bathroom. He strangled Shirley, and then he got scared because a postman rang the doorbell. So he got scared and he took out. He took off. The kids survived, and they did give a vague description of BTK.
Huh. I always thought it was just that one brother that got away. Okay.
No. Yeah. He didn't kill these kids, but the postman did scare him away.
Well, good
Before,
job.
probably he may have, I think he would have killed him.
Right.
And I think he got scared away. But that's
And just ran away because
Yeah, and that's just me
that makes sense.
guessing. Adding my 2 cents.
Big baby. Scared of a doorbell.
Well, that's okay. Thank God. He
I
didn't
know,
kill those
thank God.
kids. Yeah. So December 8th, 1977.
Mm-hmm.
So Nancy Fox was a 25-year-old lady, came home from work and went to her kitchen and found somebody standing in there in her kitchen. He forced her into the bedroom, undress. He took the belt he was wearing, strangled her with it. And then once she finally died, and I think she came to, but once she died, he masturbated on her body. After killing Fox, the man goes to the payphone, calls the police, and tells dispatch, "You will find a homicide at 843 South Pershing."
He's so crazy. And this is also, I think it's important to note, back then people weren't as security driven as we are now, right? There weren't Ring cameras. There weren't, people in certain areas weren't really locking their doors. There wasn't that need,
We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. There wasn't cameras on every corner.
Nope.
Yeah. So.
And stuff like this that made us security conscious.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of these victims walk in and he was already in the home.
Yes.
Or like the kids open the door and they're just like, come on in, this was pre-stranger danger.
Right. And also, you got your news back then from newspapers. You got them from TV stations.
Right.
We had 3 TV stations back then, ABC,
That's
NBC, CBS. A little later, we got Fox. But, that's all you had. And you had antennas. You didn't even have cable. And
right.
And
it was before it all became a show.
Right.
So, it was just like, here's what happened.
So the public didn't really know what's going on.
And
at
it's
this
delayed,
point.
right?
Right.
Yeah, especially with newspapers. That's pretty delayed.
Yeah. And even so, I think the police kind of kept it quiet on the DL, and we'll see in a minute that irritates Mr. BTK.
Oh, yeah. Narcissist.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move a few weeks later to January 31st.
Okay.
1978. A poem was sent to the newspaper, the Washington Eagle, that begins, and I'm quoting again, surely locks, wilt thou be mine." However, because Valentine's Day was coming up, they thought it was like an ad. And back then, again, we didn't have the internet. They would post ads in the classifieds.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So, if you wanted a grand gesture, you could post an ad in the classified. So that's what they thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
They thought it was somebody
being so sweet and charming
for Valentine's Day. So it was posted in the classifieds, which nobody saw. So February 10th comes around. And because there was no response to the poem, BTK, he got angry. He's not happy. He sends a direct message to now a TV station, KAKE.
Yes.
And this is a quote. "How many more people do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper or some national attention?" Shortly thereafter, I think that same day, news conference was held by the police announcing BTK, strangler, and warning that he will kill again. So I think that's when it finally...
Gross, but also like, why play into it? I wonder what the thought process was behind that.
Him contacting?
No. I understand his. He was just a narcissist and wanted all of the eyes and the attention but not for real, because he didn't tell anybody his real name. He hid behind BTK. I'm wondering what would make the police say, yeah, all right, we're going to announce it and give him what he's asking for. Like, what is the thought behind that?
I think a lot of times with police, they will, and we know we can't hold it back today because of the internet and because of cell phones and because of everything.
Everybody knows anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And so even if the police are trying to hold something, quiet, John Smith out on the streets got that camera and showing it, and even if the police are trying to hide something, let's say like the Rodney King in the 90s, they wouldn't have had that out had that neighbor didn't have that camera and give it to the TV. Guarantee the police wouldn't have announced it.
No.
So
that's what I mean. But so like, why did they give in to this guy? Or they're
maybe,
like, yeah, all right, we'll scratch that itch for you, buddy.
Maybe
like,
I think part of it was investigative. They were keeping it under wraps, investigative, and they didn't want the public to go crazy scaring. You also had at this time,
but they did. They made that big announcement.
Yeah,
he's like,
they eventually
the
did,
news?
and I think also too, they're thinking maybe he won't kill if we do announce it. And I'm just
maybe.
Reading.
I know you're spitballing.
Yeah, and I think it could be those, and you don't want to get the community, going crazy scared.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why they held it in. I guess.
No. That part I get too. Like I would keep it like, hey, be on the lookout, lock your freaking doors.
Yeah. And that may be another reason why.
But why play into his BT? I would be, I'm not announcing the name you want to be called.
And they do more than once, and it eventually gets him captured.
I would want to see, but at the same time, I think I would want to piss him off and not say it and see if he'd
But then
slip
if he
up.
kills again, they're gonna, they're gonna be like, oh crap,
No. Announce that there's somebody out there. Be careful. Don't feed his ego by saying his little I want to be BT. Like screw you, buddy.
Yeah, and again, we're all just speculating here, and who knows?
I don't know what they.
Yeah,
what
and I'm sure it's out there why they did what they did, but
I'm gonna Google it.
We can Google it later.
I'll Google it later. I started to Google a minute ago, and then I was like, no, I will focus.
Yeah, and I didn't Google that because I didn't even think about that. So that's, that's a good question. That's a good question.
That's what I'm here for.
Yes.
The sidekick questions.
Yeah. So that was in February.
Of 78?
Of 78.
Okay.
So BTK lays low for a few years. So obviously.
Which is also weird, but okay.
But it worked.
Yeah.
So let's go to April 28th, not a few years, a year. 1979.
Okay.
So, a little
That's
over
a good long time.
Yeah.
Because he was every couple months or every few months or whatever.
Yeah.
Quarterly.
So Anna Williams, she takes too long to come home. BTK was laying in wait for Miss Anna. This saves her life.
Okay.
2 months later, BTK sends a poem to her that's titled, "Oh, Anna, why didn't you appear?" along with some of her personal items.
Gross.
So she survived. But she didn't know.
But she didn't get attacked. She
No.
She go where he expected her to be.
Right. He
okay.
got tired of waiting and left. So let's go to August 14th, 1979.
Okay.
Police release the voice recording from the call that he made to dispatch a few years earlier when he called. To report.
Why'd that take so long? Sorry.
No. To report to dispatch
the homicide,
the Fox's murder. No credible information was generated. That
nobody
leads to the
recognized his
killer.
voice or whatever.
I mean, I think they had a bunch of leads, but nothing that really led to who it was.
Okay.
So, that was. I mean, it was a good shot, a good try, and that's what they, except for now, they will do surveillance, posting it on social media. We see that every day. So let's move to 1984.
Oh, that's a big jump. Okay.
So police formed a task force.
Okay.
Called Ghostbusters.
Oh, that is timely. Isn't that when the movie came out?
When the movie came out. And it was devoted to investigating these crimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, it took a while to form a task force, but, and again, back then, that's when Ted Bundy was active in the 70s. And,
sure, yeah.
I think Eileen Warnes was a little bit later in the 80s, but Charles Manson, we had him in the late
Night
60s,
Stalker
70s.
was in.
The Night Stalker was.
Night Stalker was. He was late 80s, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in the 90s, but
no.
Well, late 80s. Yeah.
I'm like, no, I remember being little.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm freaking old.
Yeah,
me too. I was little.
Okay, so let's go to 1985.
Wait, what happened to the Ghostbusters? So did they figure anything out, or they just
No.
had fun, named their little... I'm sorry.
No.
I should make it very clear that I love law enforcement.
Yes.
I just
love
have questions. I'm also wondering, Nate Tata, my nephew, are you listening? Because he said he wasn't going to listen because he doesn't like cold case.
Well, this isn't.
This one isn't. So this
Yeah.
one I'll share with him specifically, but he has it. He is a cop, and it frustrates him to hear like investigative misses. I would say,
Yeah.
Which I mean, it
But you
frustrates
got
us
to
all.
look back at the times too.
Yeah,
We didn't have DNA.
not a lot.
We
Mm-mm.
didn't have DNA. We had. I mean, you could type blood back then.
Mhm. But I
and
mean, that's not narrowing it down. I mean,
me and you could have the
woo,
same type of
right?
blood, and
Yeah, there weren't. They didn't have access to the same amount of things
right,
that we do now.
right, and they had fingerprints, and of course they had DNA because he masturbated on one of the bodies.
Sure, but nothing to compare it to
But
anyway.
yeah.
And we didn't have that technology.
And
It
we
doesn't-
didn't have
yeah.
CODIS, and we didn't
Mm-mm.
have any of all the things that we do now.
I do like that they finally thought to share the voice recording. I'm sad it didn't. I just wonder if they had shared it closer to when he had made the call, if they, instead of waiting, what was it, years? A couple years?
yeah,
But, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
2 years later, looks like two to three, but yeah.
But yes, you're right.
Again, nothing came really of the task force Ghostbusters, and we all know that that's the year the first Ghostbusters. I believe that's the year it came out.
I'll Google that. That'll be real
Okay.
quick. Okay, let's.
The original Ghostbusters.
The OG.
Yes, none of this new nonsense.
I almost typed in OG instead of. Anyway, okay, back to BTK.
So let's move to April 27th, 1985.
I did 1984.
Yeah. So it was the same year.
Yeah, same year. Okay.
So let's move to April 27th, 1985.
Okay.
BTK strangles his neighbor. Her name was Maureen Hedge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She was taken from her home after she returned home from a night of bingo.
Okay.
And 8 days later, she was found strangled. And the police at the time didn't connect it to BTK because her body was moved.
Okay.
So
that's right.
They didn't connect it at the time. And I believe Miss Hedge lived up the street from
Him. From his
Mhm.
family.
And the last one we'll talk about today in the 80s is September 16th, 1986.
Okay.
Bill Wegerly, I guess I'm pronouncing that right. He goes home to find his 2-year-old home alone.
Yeah.
His wife, Vicky, was dead in the bedroom. She was strangled with a nylon stocking. And I believe he was the main victim. Excuse me.
What?
The main suspect.
Really? Okay.
For a while. And I don't think that they connected this to him. And what I do remember reading about this case is Bill was on his way home for lunch.
Okay.
And he sees their car leaving and sees at a distance, the man driving it. And so I believe this is yeah. And I don't know if he gives a description. I can't remember. I believe he may have been the one hypnotized. I remember Julie saying
people
but
were
I don't-
hypnotized. Yeah.
yeah, but I can't remember exactly.
I don't know.
But I do remember reading that part. So
Okay, so that's the 80s, which I did. I'm a Googler while we're sitting here.
That's okay.
Night Stalker was 80s.
Yeah.
So there was all that. It's like, that's
and,
what, like a phase.
Yeah,
almost.
and Ted Bundy had a lot of national attention.
yeah,
and
he
so BTK didn't have the national attention,
Haha.
which that he wanted.
He did want it.
Yeah.
Blech.
So let's go. He goes silent. BTK goes silent for a while until
Mhm.
January 19th, 1991.
Okay. That's another big jump.
Yeah. From 86 to 91.
Okay.
So BTK throws a cinder block through a glass door, strangles Dolores Davis, and leaves her body on a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the body was moved. That's not something he has done in the past. So now we're going to jump even further to 2004.
And they do get into, like, at some point in investigating, they do realize why the time between, like, that's a lot of time. I thought
I'm sure
they did.
do. I'm
Okay.
sure. I
Let's get to it.
yeah, I didn't delve as far into that, but
Okay.
So in January 2004, newspapers the newspaper, the Wichita Eagle runs a piece for the 30th anniversary of the BTK murders. And
why would you do? Okay.
Well, I mean, and
for the victims, like.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it is a cold case at the time. And they're trying to get, when you run media, it may jog somebody's memory or whatever. And so, they're doing that for a purpose to try to get, and that's the goal, I think, of a lot of the newspapers and even our goal sometimes when we do the cold cases.
100% our goal.
But anyway, so they, run this 30th anniversary, and they suggest BTK has faded from memory.
Ooh.
And of course, he hungers for the spotlight. So here we go.
Gross.
He's ready to return.
Okay.
So March 19th, 2004. So just a few months later, the newspaper receives an envelope from BTK with Vicky Wegerle's missing driver's license, pictures of the woman's body, and his signature BTK. So I think that's when it finally connects. It's BTK that did that murder, because I believe from what I read, it didn't connect.
It was unsolved and unrelated.
That they thought.
Right. They thought. Yeah. Sorry.
And so he takes credit for that murder. So there we go. May 5th, 2004, items were mailed to Cake TV, K-A-K-E TV in Wichita, Kansas, which included a phony ID, chapter titles for the BTK biography.
Oh my God.
And
he's so crazy.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And
but here we are talking about him, so.
Well, he's very interesting. He's
a tricky creeper.
He's one of my favorite creepers.
Well, that's why we do this.
Yeah. And I know that's weird to say you have a favorite, but he is one of my favorite serial killers.
I would say he's the most intriguing.
Yeah.
Because he's so clinical about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, again, chapter titles for his biography. And then it also contains a word letter grid spelling out clues like prowl and fantasies.
Did he spell them right? Just kidding.
You know, one of those word search. I think that's what it looked like. I can't remember. I know I
saw
it.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Okay.
Later, it was determined that letters Rader, R-A-D-E-R, are grouped around the number 6220, which is his street address. And this was later after he was captured.
That's his name.
Yeah, his name and his street address. So that's funny. So
it's too bad he didn't put that brain power to good use.
Who? BTK?
Yes. Because that's pretty intelligent to put that together. Forget that.
Whoever found that. I mean, it wasn't determined right then, But let's go to December 13th, 2004.
Let's go.
A few months later, BTK leaves more messages in public places. So a man is walking in a park and finds a garbage bag.
Okay.
With Nancy Fox's driver's license.
Okay.
And a Barbie doll with a hood over the head and the arms tied behind her back, the Barbie doll's back.
Okay.
So January 25th, 2005, a few months or a month later, postcard was sent to the TV station, K-A-K-E, with instructions for police, and then the police find a cereal box on the side of the road, I think, with graphic description of BTK's first murder. Another doll in the same position. He also references another package at Home Depot. And when, police go there and they investigate, and, they didn't immediately find it, but they did find an employee that found a cereal box in the back of his truck with a message asking if BTK can communicate via floppy disk without being traced. He also instructed police to run a news ad with, quote, Rex, it will be okay. That's the ad that he wanted police to put in the paper.
Rex,
comma, it will be okay.
Who's Rex?
I don't know.
Well, okay. Don't get too wordy on me, Christina.
Well, I mean, he's not going to give his real name. He's not going to say, hey, Dennis, it'll be okay. So that was the police were to put that in the paper. If the floppy disk
Oh.
So he instructed the police. He asked the police.
That. Okay.
Yeah. He asked the police, hey,
If
can I
do
communicate floppy disk, if it's not going to be traced, note it in the newspaper. Let me know.
How can one person be so stupid and so smart at the same time? Of course, cops are going to be like, Rex, it'll be okay. Even if you could trace it, I'd tell you I couldn't.
Well, and you got to think back then, too. Again, we're in 2005. We still had floppy disks.
Sure, yeah.
For
those of you listening who may not know, that was an old school form of storage.
Yes, it wasn't. Yeah.
That's how we did all the things.
It wasn't the cloud.
There was no cloud.
No, there was no cloud.
Unless it was actual clouds in the sky.
Like we had yesterday or the day before.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Okay. So January 28th, a couple days later, police run the ad. BTA confirms through a postcard sent to the TV station that he saw. So the police run the ad, Rex, it will be okay. And then he sends a postcard acknowledging he saw it.
Okay.
All right.
So weird. Just send the floppy disk then, buddy. Like, why would you be like, okay.
He's going to trust the police will tell him the truth. And there's a little story behind that in a minute.
Okay.
It's interesting.
This whole thing's interesting, but okay.
So a few weeks later, February 16th, 2005, a disc arrives and the police investigate and uncovers BTK's message about checking an index card for more information, along with hidden metadata that reveals that the disc to have been used by Dennis at the Christ Lutheran Church.
Okay.
And Park City Library. So this is what the police uncovered as they're, tracing the disc.
Okay. So they couldn't trace him, but they were able to see what else it had been used for.
Who used it and where it was used.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, for people who don't know, a floppy disk could be used, erased, used again, erased, used again, but not fully erased.
Just like computers. You think you're deleting something,
but it's
not. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Within seconds, an internet search for Christ Lutheran Church reveals the name of its president, Dennis Rader. Police learned Rader's daughter had been hospitalized, or had been to the hospital, not hospitalized.
Okay.
For a pap smear. And having DNA by this time, from the crime scenes, they had DNA. The police,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So they obtained that pap smear through proper warrants and all that. And they obtained that sample from the hospital and it matched.
Gosh, you know what, though? What kind of warrant? I don't know. Now I feel like her privacy was violated a little.
I mean, they
caught him, but
they do that, a lot. They'll get a warrant and, it's a familiar. I
get what they're looking for, but just a side thought.
And maybe they couldn't get the full warrant for his DNA. But I don't know.
I know. It's just a random thought. I am just lobbing them at you.
That's okay.
Because that's how my brain works. I'm like, wait a minute.
So February.
So then she kind of helped catch her dad.
Unknowingly.
Yeah.
And on February 25th, 2005, as Rader was heading home to have a lunch, police pulled him over and arrested him.
Ha!
Rader confesses after being confronted with DNA evidence. Ironically, Rader was very irritated at the police because they lied to him about the floppy disk.
About the floppy disk? Well, you're dumb. So
he was a little irritated about that.
Cry me a river, buddy.
Yeah. So on June 27th, 2005, Rader pled guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder.
10?
10 counts.
Okay.
Because he had 10 victims.
It feels like more.
Yeah. Okay. Following a 2-day sentencing hearing, which we all watched, and he stood up and just talked in detail about what he did, how he did it.
This is the clinical, he's just cold.
And matter of fact.
So, meh.
Yeah. Just very monotone, very.
And the families had to sit through it.
And he didn't care.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross.
And so if anybody, I would recommend watching that.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is the most interesting. I remember watching it when it was happening, and it was just the most interesting thing. Just
It
his
is-
demeanor.
He's just so disconnected from it. He's
Yeah.
so, it's like it didn't even happen to him.
Yeah.
And I think you can catch a little bit of it on Catching Killers on Netflix. I think they talk about BTK. I think they have a little bit of the court
Yeah.
in there.
It's fascinating.
It's stunning
fascinating.
that you can just be so disconnected.
And just he talked about
Just
it,
do-do-do-do-do.
and he talked about it in detail,
Mhm.
and he just yeah.
I was like, he's going down his grocery list.
Yeah.
And then this, and then that, and then this.
And this is why I
This
needed
is-
this, and this
Mhm.
is how I did this. Yeah, it was interesting.
Blech.
Very fascinating. And he was also sentenced to 10 life terms in prison. He's still alive
Not
today.
enough.
Yeah, they didn't.
He is for sure, in my opinion. I would not be sad if he got death. Do they not have that
I
in
don't-
Kansas?
I did not look. I would think not. And it could be because he pled guilty. That's why they gave him the life terms. It could have been a plea bargain. I don't remember.
I mean, call me crazy, but people like that just don't need to be like, bye.
Yeah.
That's a conversation for another time.
August 23rd, 2023, Rader is suspected of 2 murders in Oklahoma. We touched on that in the last podcast.
Yes.
A search was conducted at a lot where Rader's home once stood, and authorities uncovered bondage materials and other items of interest. BTK is linked to the disappearance of Cynthia Kinney from Oklahoma in 1976, as well as the death of Shauna Garber, whose body was discovered in Missouri in December 1990.
Okay.
He was also suspected of another murder, but they cleared him of that.
Okay.
But from what I understand, there's not much distance between Oklahoma, and he worked at one of them was abducted from a laundromat, and he worked like across the street at the
Okay.
time. So, but let's talk about Dennis Rader just briefly.
Briefly.
Dennis Rader,
'Cause forget that guy.
he had a normal childhood.
Really?
He was an average student in school, and by his own admission, he had developed fantasies of bondage, torture, domination at a very young age.
How? Okay. So how can you say you have an average childhood if you're aware of that at a young, like how? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Again,
don't know.
internet wasn't around back then.
That's
so
true.
How'd he have access
And
to stuff like that?
he was in grade school when he developed this thought, and it could just be
Huh.
just like the nature versus nurture.
Sure.
We don't know. But he admits to having killed cats and dogs, like every serial
killer thing.
Mhm.
Yep.
He would hang him, strangle him
Ah.
at youth during his
Ugh.
youth.
Like
By-
I don't hate this guy enough already.
By puberty, he had already dreamed of tying girls up and having sex with them.
Ugh.
He says the fantasies were almost like a picture show.
Okay.
And he wanted to direct, produce, no matter what the cost of that picture show
Mm-hmm.
in his mind. So after high school, in the summer of 1966, at the age of 21, he joined the United States Air Force.
Aw.
While in the Air Force, Rader would peek through window blinds. He was a little peeper,
Yeah.
peeping Tom.
Like, God, okay.
That was a thing. If you back then, peepers were creepy. That was the
Yes.
creepers back then. Were peepers?
Sure.
Looking in people's windows.
But now I'm like, doesn't the Air Force have a psych test before they bring people in?
Yeah, but
Maybe not
Listen.
that deep back then.
psych tests anybody can
I guess.
pass
Okay.
if you.
Think
I've
it
had
through.
them, and I'm
What are you saying, Christina?
well. Let's move on.
Good job, then.
Let's
Good
move
job.
on before
Okay.
I lose my job and get locked up.
All right.
Anyway,
Moving on.
so he would watch women undress. He would break into their homes, steal their undergarments.
Okay.
In the fall of 1973, he began working toward his bachelor's degree at Wichita State University.
Mm-hmm.
After losing his job, he became sad, unhappy. He slipped into deeper, darker fantasies. He slipped into this world, of darkness,
Okay.
and that he knew as a child. All that fantasizing and daydreaming.
So that all came back because it made him feel good when he was little. He was like, I'm going to
Yeah.
This will make me happy again.
And I'm just going to give a warning. We're going to be a little graphic. I know we have been throughout this. We probably should have warned in the beginning. But let's say he became obsessed with pornography and liked to daydream. He
Okay.
nicknamed his penis Sparky.
That's funny.
I
That's
like
not
that. That's just funny.
okay.
He
Is
enjoyed.
that the graphic part?
Yeah, I just.
Oh
wanted to-
gosh, that was that was
Listen,
nothing. Sparky.
I may have high school students listening,
Oh yes,
so
children. No,
okay.
that's hilarious.
It is. It's good. He enjoyed trolling the neighborhoods for young women, and by 1974 is when he finally acted on his fantasies. As we know, that's when his crimes began.
Okay.
In between murders, he lived a remarkably normal life.
Yeah, that's
He
what's
had
so
a-
weird.
He had a wife and 2 children. He was a pillar in the community in Wichita, Kansas. He attended church. He was a Boy Scout leader.
Yes, I know. That creeps me out.
So,
So he was like passing. He was like,
he was living a double life.
yeah, but that's like he was. I just kind of equate it with passing because he was letting everybody think like he was almost going above and beyond to be like, I'm totally normal.
Yeah.
I'm such a good guy. Meanwhile,
And it's weird how he got away with it for
mm-hmm.
30 years, you know?
even though he tried to not to, even though he was like, hey,
well, and
here I
that's
am.
his ego and his narcissism, you
Mhm.
know, other people getting attention. He's not liking that.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
anyway, so that's the end of my BTK story. I did get all the information from many sources, and we can list them on our social media.
Sure.
From
We can. But yeah, he's a crazy one. He captures my attention for the same reason that I think he's just so clinical. And it's so weird. It's really his daughter that I think about
yeah,
because and I think she has, I don't want to misspeak, but I feel like she talks about forgiving him and moving on because it was so hard to accept that dichotomy of him being a good dad. Although she did say he had angry outbursts.
yeah,
I do remember that he had outbursts of anger, but other than that, he tried to be a good dad.
And-
how do you reconcile that?
and I mean, I guess you have to. I guess that's her way of having to reconcile it because you got to move on with your life. You can't dwell
Yeah.
in it. You can't be the victim, and you know you've got to move on from that persona and that's your dad, and you know, yeah.
Let
So
me see.
it's definitely a very interesting case for those that do not know. Now you know. We gave
Wait,
it-
okay, I'm Googling.
okay.
It is a super interesting case. And if you listened last week as we talked about Julie Rydell's book, now you understand kind of,
who he was and
who he
why she
was.
was so nervous and
yeah.
you know, her name, the police gave her the name The Sketcher, so he wouldn't know who she was at the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it looks like maybe she didn't forgive him, but she has gone back. She went back for a surprise prison visit, but helped to link him to unsolved crimes was
Yeah.
according to this source why she went.
Well,
So, I mean, interesting. Interesting. I mean, what do? You turn around and your dad's this big, scary serial killer.
that'd be cool. No, I'm just kidding.
Christina, you would. You'd be
I'm
like, "Yes,
joking.
I am going to research you."
I'm joking. You got to have a little dark sense of humor, especially in this field
Sure.
and the field I worked in for so long.
I was like your previous field.
Yeah.
And maybe your current field.
my
as well.
current field for sure.
But okay, so that was an interesting one. So a little off topic for us to go into a case that has been solved. Typically, we'll talk about cold cases, and we're trying to keep it in Texas for now.
Yeah.
But this was interesting, and really, we wanted to round out.
And if you like
book.
this and want more of this, we're
Yeah.
all about. I love me some Ted Bundy and
Yeah.
some Eileen Warnes.
True crime.
Yeah, just let us know on our
But I
social
know
media.
those, so I can't be like, what?
You could pretend. You can be a good actress.
I could I'd give it a shot. But yeah, definitely follow us, Silent Witness Texas. We will mostly dig into true crime, but I'm in cold cases. But like Christina said, if you like the true crime, we're new to this. We'll do
Yeah.
whatever you want to listen to. We are both very interested in
Let
all
us,
of the above.
Yeah, let us know. Leave us a review. Download our podcast and share it with your friends and family. We're just trying to, and if you want us to do more of this kind of stuff, listen,
We got it.
I was researching death row inmates this past week, and now I was just thinking in my head, maybe we should do some.
We can. It's true crime and cold cases.
It is.
Thanks again for listening to The Silent Witness Texas. You can catch us on Rogue Media Network or anywhere where you get your podcasts. As for now, this is Christina and Erica.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.
Hey there, golf lovers. Looking to step up your game? Let me tell you about Mollybox, the ultimate golf subscription box. Every month, Mollybox sends you a box packed with premium golf gear, accessories, and stylish apparel, all delivered right to your door. Imagine getting top-tier apparel and more, all handpicked just for you. With Mollybox, you'll stay ahead of the game and boost your performance. It's like having a personal caddy in a box. So why wait? Join the Mollybox family today. Head over to mollybox.com and use your limited time promo code ROGUE25, ROGUE, ROGUE25 for 25% off your first box. That's mollybox.com.